Super Bowl 60 is here. We're going to break it down, give you best bets. We're going to give you analysis where we think each team has an edge. Welcome back to the Nothing Sports Podcast. I blanked there for a second. My apologies. Please like and subscribe. Let us know your thoughts on the Super Bowl, who you got. So, yeah. We're going to be having Stadium Series numbers and Super Bowl 60 preview along with our top 5 headlines that we have missed over the last week and you may have missed as well. So, moving into it, the NFLPA says players have no appetite for an 18th game. And so it kind of came out with the Robert Kraft, I think it was press conference or interview. He said that the NFL was really trying to get teams to play an 18-game season with one team each having a overseas game or international game, whatever you want to call it. And the NFLPA pushed back on that. And so you move into this, and I think the schedule was grueling enough. You saw how many injuries you had this year. And at this rate, careers are going to be, already the average NFL career is 3 to 4 years. And you're the mainstay guys, like the guys that get their second contract, aren't going to make it through their second contract. Like the guys that are playing 12, 15 years wouldn't be a thing anymore if we're doing 18 games and 1 bye week. In my opinion, if it was going to happen, you'd have to give the players at least 2 bye weeks. I would personally be for 3. And so if the NFL really wants to push this through, they were going to have to wait until the CBA expires in 2031. So, because evidently the players do not want to open up the contract for the CBA. And granted, the cap would go up and all that, but the NFL is going to spend a lot of this money on getting the players to international games. I think it's really tough on travel and all that. And if you see some of the games that have already been announced, you have, I think it's Seattle and San Francisco are going to Australia, which in my mind, that makes no sense because I understand divisional matchups are a little more interesting, but in my opinion, wouldn't you want to make the travel for the teams that already have to travel a lot to play each other a little bit longer? So, Briggs, I'll get your take on the overall feeling on the 18th game and how the NFLPA responded to it.
So I personally am not a fan of an 18-game season. I think at this point you're starting to just water down the regular season. It's already long enough as it is. I mean, you start in September and you're going into the new year, just the regular season. And so you talked about the long, grueling schedule that the players have, and the amount of injuries that we've seen. And look at the injuries to key players as well, and how these injuries are ultimately affecting how these seasons are going. I mean, we've seen like teams at the start of the year who are legitimate playoff or Super Bowl contenders get wiped out and decimated with injuries, and how that drastically alters the course of their season. Now, onto the topic of international games, I am completely against them. I think it's the stupidest thing on the planet. Americans take pride in having football as like our like big sport. I don't understand the whole point of us going and playing a game in France, playing a game in Australia, playing games in England and Spain. They hate us already as it is. Why are we going and giving them something that's so great? Like that's a genuine question. Because I know the Saints are going to play the Raiders in France. I don't know if that's great. The Saints are playing in France. And I understand the connection that the Saints have with Paris. I don't really care. I'm against them. I like us playing on American soil, especially. I mean, you talk about a divisional game. How big were those home field advantages during the divisional matchups between the Seahawks and the Rams and the Seahawks and the Niners when it came down to the last 2 to 3 weeks of the season choosing the number 1 seed in the NFC? And so, I mean, you look at it now, one of those teams isn't going to get a home game this year for their divisional matchup against one of their better teams in that division. But yeah, just my little slice of the pie on that.
Yeah, I just think the NFL schedule is getting more and more brutal. You're just gonna have guys. They're gonna get their second contract. They're gonna sign a 2-year second contract, and then they're just gonna retire after 6 years because they don't want to destroy their bodies. I mean, the travel is already grueling enough, especially for those West Coast teams, because there's nowhere near as many West Coast teams as there are East Coast teams. So it's just a grueling travel schedule. And like I said, if you're going to do this, you need at least 3 buys. And it's going to get to the point where we're going to have a Super Bowl in not America. And I think one of the biggest things is I love the NFL, but the NFL does not care about its fan base. You saw the backlash about like with Bad Bunny, whatever your opinion is on that, they don't care. They they're gonna do what they want to do. They got backlash for pushing Taylor Swift. You know what the NFL kept doing? Pushing Taylor Swift. Got backlash for Bad Bunny. A lot of it. They're gonna keep pushing Bad Bunny. Even though what I would say probably 80% of the people that are gonna watch the Super Bowl won't understand a word he says. And that's cool. But they don't care about their base. They are all about trying to reach out to a different demographic rather than making their fans that are happy because they know you're not going to leave. So that's my take.
I will say, over the course of the last decade, I have progressively started to watch the NFL less and less, given I still watch it. But you look at college football, and I think we're gonna get to this here in a little bit with the CFP schedule getting moved around a little bit. Um, but if it gets to a certain point where the NFL starts to completely abandon their actual American fans and starts to focus more on growing the game and expanding overseas, I think you could see an explosion in viewership for college football and people starting to be like, oh, if the NFL doesn't care about us, we can go watch another form of football here in the US where you could argue the in-person experience is a little bit better. It's a lot more energy there, but it's a lot easier to get to a game in person.
So that brings up a question that I'll ask and then we'll move to the CFP schedule. Why do you think the Ireland game for college football gets such better reception than NFL games going overseas?
I think that you look at it, it's week 0, and it's seen as more of like a kickoff to the season rather than, and like I don't see them expand. Like there's no talk about them expanding anymore. In college football, home field advantage is cherished so closely, and it's like it's such an advantage to be able to play in your home field and have your own fans behind you. And we've seen what's happened with that. I mean, just look back to 2022 when I got to experience South Carolina beating Tennessee in person. You take the crowd out of that, I don't think that's the same game. And so, why would a team, especially in like you look at some of these top teams in the Big Ten and the SEC, why would they give up a home field advantage in a major matchup? I mean, it could be the difference between finishing 11-1, 12-0, or 9-3, 8-4. And so I don't think there's any talks of them going and expanding. Oh, we're going to go play a game in Madrid. We're going to go play a game in Paris. We're going to go play a game in Australia because no one wants to give up playing outside of Columbus, outside of Bryant Denny, outside of um, Knoxville or Columbia. Like no one's going to want to leave from their actual fan base. I also think that you look at college football fan bases, a lot of them are very localized in the region where the universities are. You're not going to find too many Ohio State fans or South Carolina fans in London or in Paris or Barcelona, Madrid, wherever you go. So that may just be another reason to it.
I can agree with that. I mean, I think Ireland's caught a lot of flack with the field stuff and all that, but like you said, it's kind of a kickoff to the season. And I will say, with reference to the 18-game season, if every team does play an international game, I do think it levels the playing field a little bit more versus where only 12 teams per se. I don't know how many actually played an international game, but it levels the playing field where everyone's disadvantaged with having a bad week per se.
And I
But
think the other thing is we've seen. I think the Vikings did it one year. I think the Jaguars did it last year, either the year before, where they'll go and they'll stay overseas in Europe for like 2 weeks and play 2 games back to back over there.
so, well, it was the Rams, I think. They stayed in Baltimore for like the week before, and then flew over the day, like a day or two prior. So it's interesting styles. I think it depends on your team and depends on your personnel. But we were just talking about college football. Moving into college football, the CFP schedule got announced for 2026 and 2027. We're just gonna stick with 2026 because that's the here and the now. So we have week 0 starting out on August 29th. Week 1 is on September 5th. That's the Saturday of. Rivalry week 13, is November 28th. Conference championships are December 5th. The quarterfinals are December 30th and January 1st. The semis are January 14th and 15th. The national championship is January 25th. The halfway point of the season, like mathematically, is week 11, which is November 14th. November 14th is the halfway point. We have a 38-day playoff. I believe is what I read. I didn't actually count out the days. That is insane. Why is the season so long? You have 14 days between the quarters and the semis. And the dates, obviously, between conference championships and the quarters, there's 25 days between the first one. Those teams that have the byes are going to have 25 days off. So you look at how flat Ohio State came out. You look at how flat Georgia came out. You look at Indiana came out a little flat on the first drive. Not as bad, but I think Indiana was just a team of destiny. And then you look how flat Texas Tech came out and was flat the entire game for Texas Tech. They had, I think it was 21 or 22 days off this year. You add another 3 days on that, it's going to be a bloodbath. And you're going to see this 1-7 record for the teams that have the byes. It might end up being 1-11 by the end of next year. I think it's insane that we're even talking about a 38-day playoff for 4 rounds, where some teams are only playing 3 rounds. So, and I did like the national championship being on January or Martin Luther King Day because I had the day off. Like I could watch game day because I'm on West Coast, so game day is a little bit earlier. I enjoyed having the national championship on Martin Luther King Day, but next year it's not even on Martin Luther King Day. It makes no sense. We're giving teams one bye now. The calendar is so utterly insane, and it's going to come into fruition again next year, where it's going to probably be even more chaotic. So, what are your thoughts on the schedule? I probably laid it all out pretty similar. I think we're on the same wavelength when it comes to this, but maybe you can express them in a different way.
I can't remember which coach said it, but I feel like you should maybe get 1 week off max, but roll right into the CFP following conference championships. That way, teams are already hitting, like they're already at their peak and they're rolling right through it. You don't give them a month off. You aren't worried about teams coming out flat. At worst, they have 2 weeks off. And so to go and take this on, plus also this gives the CFP a chance to at least wrap up around the New Year's timeline, which allows those guys who are going to go and enter the portal to enter into the portal after they've completed their run with the current team that they're going to be on and not have to worry about losing a potential roster spot at the new school they're going to go to, which is an issue we saw with Bo Pribula 2 years ago, going from Penn State to Missouri, where he had to leave Penn State prior to their semifinal game so that he'd be able to go and actually get his spot at Missouri and know that he was like not going to lose it. And then I think we've seen other instances where players, I think, I can't remember if there was a guy who left Indiana prior to them making the national championship, but we've seen many cases of these guys having to leave their teams early so they actually know that they have a home next year.
And I checked it right after the transfer portal closed. It's probably a little bit different now, but I think it was only 70% of the players that entered the transfer portal ended up finding a new team. Yeah, yeah. But so it's such a problem, and like the
I will
calendar's only getting worse.
I will interdict on this because you just mentioned only about 30% of players finding a new team. I think this has to do with more of these boneheaded agents telling players like, oh, you can get so much more money if you enter into the portal. And it's really, I'm going to call them sharks because that's what they are. I mean, they're telling these kids like, oh, you can get so much more money if you enter the portal. There's so many better places to go for you. And these kids are like believing that there's like so many of these schools that are going to reach out to them. And there's just no one that's coming. Like no one's picking up the phones for them. No one's coming calling. And now that they've entered into the portal, their old team has filled the roster spot with guys coming out of the portal. And so now they don't have anywhere to go and they're just kind of left out in the flat and it's going to kill their career.
And here's a thought that, and this is completely off topic, but it kind of is on topic. But so, what is stopping? So I forget who the two quarterbacks are. You have Eli Holstein and another quarterback that went to UVA. They're both seniors. They're competing for that
I think
quarterback job.
Pribula went to UVA.
I think it was Pribula. So you have these two quarterbacks. What is stopping a guy from not just transferring to another school in the summer? Like, what exactly is stopping him? There's no enforcement. There's no guardrails on any of it. I don't think the portal window is going to really matter because you're going to have teams tampering. You're going to have, there is going to be a team that has a roster spot open that they're like, oh, this 4-star quarterback's not where we thought he'd be. Let us go get Bo Pribula, who didn't win the roster spot after spring ball. I think, I don't, and I think you're going to have agents. I think they're going to be guys that are going to enter the portal, even though it's not open. I don't think that those dates are really going to mean anything because they're not signed to actual contracts. And another thing is there's a lot of this news today, and we'll probably cover it next week. We also covered college football is in shambles. Check that episode out if you haven't already. But we'll probably talk about this next week. Is the NCAA is it's impossible for them to enforce anything when we're just going off of individual court decisions. It's impossible to enforce. I don't know if you're the NCAA, I don't know how you enforce anything when everything you do is going to get pushed away by the courts. And even Greg Sankey, where it doesn't come to his benefit, is standing for this, which I'll give Sankey credit. Sankey is not my favorite person in the world, but I'll give Sankey credit. He is one of the few people that we see in the sport that seem like they genuinely care about the health of the sport, whether it's college basketball or college football. So it's just a disaster zone, and I think you're going to see problems because we all said when they had moving to one window was a good thing, but you should do it in the summer. So that way you can just get a spring ball underway and then you can plug those roster spots that you didn't think you'd have. And that way you'd have all of spring ball to know who's invested and who's going to leave. And again, we talked about this in the college football's in shambles episode. The agents are just giving these kids bad advice because the market resets and kids and agents think they're better than they are, and they're going to get paid more. So it's a really sad case that the sport is going in this way when the on-the-field product is so good. And what you said about college football spiking in viewership, the way the sport is right now, I think a lot of people are going to end up getting turned off because the sport is in such shambles. No one can keep track of anything. If you're a casual fan, you can't keep track of it. Like, your mainstays in the NFL always. Like, you still have Mahomes, Kelsey, um, I don't know, maybe Stafford. I don't know who the casual fans consider mainstays, but like you had the Brady's, all that type of stuff. But you don't have that in college football anymore. So, any final thoughts before we move on my tangent?
Hope you're good.
Mike LaFleur, hired by the Arizona Cardinals, and not to be confused with Matt. Mike LaFleur has had a lot of experience under two of the greatest offensive minds in the game currently. He started under Shanahan in Atlanta, went with him to San Francisco in 2021. He went to be the offensive coordinator with the Jets, got fired after 2 seasons. And then the past 3 years, he's been under McVay as the offensive coordinator. 5 active head coaches have come from Sean McVay. 4 of them were the OC for him. I think the biggest problem you're going to run into is how will Mike LaFleur do calling plays? I think that's the biggest worry, and that's the biggest worry with hiring guys that aren't used to calling plays as an offensive coordinator, and now you're going to have them in these head coaching roles calling plays. On top of having to worry about the defense, having to worry about this, that you have to worry about as a head coach. I think no one wanted that Cardinals job. It was even less attractive than the Raiders job. I give it a C minus. Nothing against Mike LaFleur, but for where the Cardinals are, I think it's going to be a rough road, and it's going to end up, not whether it's Mike's fault or not, it's going to end up him being fired within the next 3 years, kind of like it did with Gannon.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think one of the big things they need to figure out is who's going to be their quarterback moving forward. Are they going to keep Kyler? Are they going to deal him, try and get picks back for it? What is their long term goal? And are they in a rebuild? Are they not? And I think these are questions that they need to kind of figure out before they go out and try and get like a marquee head coach, before they get like a marquee draft pick that they want to go and use to kind of build their franchise around. So right now, I feel like they're just kind of walking around as a chicken with the head cut off. Like they don't really have any direction. They're just kind of existing in the NFL.
Especially in such a talented division. And it's going to be really hard with, you don't know, I don't think anyone really knows what Kyler's future is. Who's your quarterback? You've got a solid young core. You got a couple of good young players, but it's just, there's not a lot there like there is on upside for other teams. Speaking of other teams, Clint Kubiak gets hired by Vegas. I think this was a pretty good hire. Clint Kubiak's had by far his best season as a coordinator. He's never been a head coach. Been an offensive coordinator for 3 different teams. He walks into a bunch of young skilled players in Ashton Jenney and Brock Bowers and a couple other guys. Max Crosby's obviously a guy. The number 1 pick, which is likely going to be their quarterback, Fernando Mendoza. Ownership group with Brady and $90 million in cap space. They don't really have any dead cap unless they get rid of Max Crosby. I don't think that's going to happen, though. And I think the difference between Sam Darnold is noticeably different. I think he'll be great to develop Fernando Mendoza. He's really dialed it in when it comes to play calling this year. And Sam's been really good under the bright lights. Obviously, we have the Super Bowl, which we're going to talk about here in a couple of minutes. But I give this a B+. I think it was a good hire. And you have potentially a Super Bowl winning coordinator coming into your rebuilding team where he's been there before. He knows what it takes, especially under another young guy in Mike McDonald. He knows what it takes and is willing to get there, and he'll have Tom Brady to consult with and a bunch of other, and he has a couple of studs. They kind of built this team. Need to bolster the offensive line a little bit. Need to get that defense rolling, but otherwise, I think that Vegas with this hire could be competing in a few short years.
So, how much of a role do you think Brady is going to actually play in, I guess, the assistance of Clint Kubiak in the actual development of the presumptive first overall pick in Fernando Mendoza?
I don't know how much of a I don't know how much of a factor he'll play in developing Fernando, but he was at the national championship game watching Fernando. So I think Brady was sitting in on some of the interviews. I could be wrong about that. Don't take that as gospel. I could be wrong. But Brady's been relatively involved, and I think he will be at the very least a resource for Clinton Kubiak to go to when it comes to this. Granted, Clint Kubiak's in the Super Bowl. He could call a great game. Who knows? This is the best. This will be the best offense the Patriots defense has played in the playoffs. So I do think I think it is a relatively good hire, and um Brady Brady's gonna have a role, but not a. I don't think he's gonna be really like coaching. I think he's gonna be more in that ownership role as a resource, not a like actual staff member. Got anything?
Yeah.
Alrighty. Moving on to some pretty good news, at least in our opinions. USA Hockey bans transgender transgenders from women's league. And the policy is, quote, in all programs restricted by sex, athletes are only permitted to participate in such programs based on their sex assigned at birth, except females assigned at birth that have undergone male hormone therapy. So I think this is a great news. I think that if, like, especially like beginner women want to play in a league where they're not going to get killed by a 6'3", 230-pound man, I think that's a good thing. So, congrats to USA Hockey. They reversed that policy. I think it's a really good thing, and it should be celebrated. Men should not be competing in women's sports. We don't really do politics on here, but that's not political. I think it's for the safety of the young women or the women that are playing in the sport.
You and I both firsthand have experienced the violence and the nature of the sport itself. To go and put someone who is a biological male, who scientifically is bigger and stronger than females, in the same game in which physical contact is not frowned upon, is straight up you're asking for people to get hurt. And so, great policy by Team USA. And if if transgenders or whatever they want to be able to play in a league where that's okay, you can go and make a separate league where you can do that and have certain people be like, oh yeah, I'm fine with it, whatever. Who cares at that point? Like if someone's okaying it, then by all means go and do it. But it's not okay for it to be a blanket statement where it's like, yeah, you have to let them in and whatnot, because now it's a matter of safety. And in a sport where it's so easy to get extremely hurt, it's it's not okay for there to be that big of a physical advantage.
Well, I mean, I've had plenty of concussions, and so you and I played in a co-ed league. So we remember, like, luckily most of the guys in our league didn't want to kill the women, so they would lighten up on the women a little bit, especially guys that are like 6'1", 6'2", 6'3". But like the I feel like in the mind of a man that thinks he is a woman, they don't think that they need to lighten up because they think we're the same. We're one and the same. And you're not, but you have the right to think. I guess you have the right to be wrong. But you're gonna someone there have been people that have gotten seriously hurt. with this whole policy thing. Maybe not in USA Hockey, but people have gotten seriously hurt in contact sports where men are playing in women's sports. And a good amount of USA Hockey's leagues are co-ed anyway. So it doesn't really matter. But in a protected woman's space, there should not be a man in there. Like straight up. If a woman is trying to compete, like even take college hockey for example, a man should not be taking a woman's spot in a women's college hockey league. It just shouldn't happen. And so I'm very happy USA Hockey put this policy through, a reversal of their previous policy, and I think it's a really good thing. The Stadium Series numbers are out, and we had said the momentum at the sport was at an all-time high, and I think it really is. And so this was the most viewed NHL regular season game ever on US cable TV. They had an average of 2.1 million live viewers. The peak was 2.4 million. 30% plus 30% versus last year's Stadium Series between Columbus and Detroit. Through 22 games, NHL and ESPN is averaging 795,000 viewers, plus 39% year over year. The Rangers and Penguins that weekend averaged 1.4 million, plus 68% versus last year's NHL on ABC average. The Avs and Wings averaged 1.2 million viewers, which is plus 39% over last year's NHL on ABC average. So, the sport is moving in a really good spot. I think it's because ESPN is actually doing a really good job of advertising it. So, shout out to ESPN. They have done a really good job of advertising the hockey, especially as we moved out of the state of college football. And I think the product on the ice, with it being so palatable, you don't have teams that are anywhere close to out of the playoffs. You generated a lot of excitement for the Olympics. Which shout out USA Hockey, the women's team did win today. So, but yeah, I think the sport is in a really good place, and it's slowly gaining that momentum, and it's really starting to peak, especially with people starting to turn away from the NBA and maybe turning away from college football or the NFL with all the stuff that's going on with it. So, and ESPN, you and I we hadn't started the podcast yet, but I had said this was a really good move, moving to ESPN for hockey's future. It was an incredible move, and you saw the growth that the NBA did on TNT. Granted, it dropped the last couple years, but the two networks that they chose and how they covered it, and ESPN's gotten a lot better at covering hockey, in my opinion, over the past couple years. I think that the sport is in a really good spot to keep generating that momentum.
I think one of the big things is the play on the ice. I mean, we talked about this either last episode or last week. I mean, you still have the legends, like the household names of Ovechkin, Crosby, still producing, and then you have that kind of middle generation that's really starting to take the torch, and they're just playing out of their mind. I mean, look at the Avalanche right now, given they're on a little bit of a skid from the absolute insane start that they were on, but still, like the on the ice product, I feel like has gone light years ahead of where it was when we were kids. And it's so much more watchable now. It's so much more competitive. And you've talked about the parity. This might be one of the most wide open seasons I think we've ever seen. And I mean, I wish that you could just expand the playoffs a little bit, because who doesn't love playoff hockey and want more of it? Because right now you could probably pick 10 teams, 12 teams out of the East to go, and it would still be one like extremely entertaining.
I think if you put all 32 teams in the playoffs, because that's if every team's going to play, like I think Vancouver, with the exception of Vancouver, because Vancouver's really bad, but I think every team is competing the rest of the way. Like, obviously you have sweeps every year in the playoffs, but like I think whoever's the 31st, I think it's the Flames. The Flames are probably competing with whoever's second in the West. I don't remember who it is
It's
right now.
It's the Blues that are 31st.
Oh, okay.
The Flames are actually 29th, 28th. Get the Rangers in there too.
But yeah, anyway, like I think all those teams are gonna compete. Yeah, I think you're not gonna have sweeps. Like if you, I hate to trash the NBA, but if you put the 30th team in the NBA versus the first team in the NBA, it's probably gonna be a sweep. The I think it's the Thunder. The Thunder, when healthy, they're sweeping whoever the 30th team is, realistically, in my opinion. And it's a hypothetical, but I don't think that's gonna happen in the NHL, especially this year, where you don't have historically bad teams. I mean, Vancouver's bad, but they're not that bad. So I think the parity in the league, we've already done an episode on this. I think it was last week. So I think the parity is really continuing to grow in the league. And I think it is a result of the salary cap a little bit, in my opinion. I think guys are getting more money and they're happy where they are. So I really like where the sport's at, and I hope it continues to grow because you and I have loved hockey all of our lives. And yeah, I mean, I'm really happy where the way the sport's growing. I think the Stadium Series was an awesome event that was put on by the league, and I hope the NHL keeps making good decisions like the Four Nations, like letting the players go play in the Olympics. I think the Olympics are going to do insane numbers. Um, and I think the playoffs are going to do really good numbers, especially if you don't have maybe the same teams. Maybe if you, hopefully, we get bigger markets in there, so that way it's a much bigger playoff. Speaking of finals, we have Super Bowl 60, and we're going to break it down. I'll let you go first because I typically steal your points. I'll let you go first and give your thoughts.
So I have two, actually kind of three big questions, and I think these three big questions are going to kind of dictate who wins the game and how. Number one is, how will Drake May fare against another elite defense? And I say elite. We've seen the Seahawks defense get picked apart a couple times by the Rams, who are one of the best producing offenses this year. But otherwise, they've been able to hold their own on the defensive side. Um, Again, shout out South Carolina graduate Nicky Mamori, although he did hurt his ankle at practice. So hoping he's okay. I would like a Super Bowl MVP from him with 5 interceptions, 4 scoop and scores and whatnot. But the Seahawks have the 12th best pass defense in the regular season. And so far in the playoffs, they've given up 257 yards per game in the air and 111 on the ground. But they've taken away the ball 4 times. I think that's the big thing is, will Drake May be able to protect the ball? And if he can't, how crucial are those turnovers going to be? Like, if he's able to turn the ball over and the Pats defense cannot give up any points off of that, then it's neither here nor there, no harm, no foul. But if he's going to turn the ball over and Sam Darnold's going to punish him big time for it, that could be the difference in this game. I don't think it's going to be a super high scoring game. So if the Seahawks are able to get points off turnovers, it simply could be the difference of a possession or two come down to the end of the fourth. My second big question is, can JSN get involved early? Was it offensive player of the year,
Shout out
offensive
Offensive
rookie of
Player
the
of the Year. Shout out
offensive
Offensive
player of the
Player of
year?
the Year.
Um, will he be able to get involved early and gash the Patriots defense? So far, the Patriots defense hasn't really been tested yet in the playoffs. They played the Chargers, who were just handicapped all year and kind of limped their way into the playoffs. With the Texans in a snow game, and you played the Broncos without their starting quarterback. So we're still waiting to see how they fare against an actual offense, although they have been able to hold the running offenses of these teams to very low numbers. I think against the Broncos and the Texans, the leading rusher was under 50 yards. And then against the Chargers, the leading rusher was Justin Herbert. So it'll be very interesting to see, can the Patriots defense slow down Kenneth Walker? And if they can, again, I think that's going to contribute to another low scoring game. I think you're going to see a lot of punts. And then my last question is actually, that was the last question is, will they be able to slow down Kenneth Walker? Wait to just smoothly transition that. So good, I didn't even realize it.
So I'm going to drop some stats, and then I'll get into keys to victory, something like that. Both teams are middle of the road on third down offense. Both top 10 in third down defense. Third down is going to be a really big key in this game. Both teams won third down their last time out in their conference championships. I think it's going to be a really big key here. I think it's going to be a stat that you look at and you're like, one team's probably going to be like 2 of 12 and another team's probably going to be like 6 of 16. Something to that effect. Where it's a stat that you're like, oh wow, like they did have a somewhat of a considerable advantage, and it's why they won the game. Both teams are top 10 in rush offense, both top 5 in rush defenses. Don't think there's going to be a lot of running room. I know these rushing offenses are very good, but I don't think there's going to be a lot of running room in this game either way. I wouldn't be surprised, like you said, if Seattle hasn't given up a 100-yard rusher all year. I think the Patriots have given up one. So I don't think that you're going to really see the ball being ran consistently or effectively. Both teams are top 11 in pass offense and defense. So where's the dam going to break? So for the Patriots, I think Drake needs to really get the ball out quick. I don't think Seattle's going to blitz a lot in this game unless they have to. But I think Seattle's going to be able to get pressure with 4. The Patriots are 28th in quarterback sack percentage. May has been sacked 5 times in all 3 playoff games. He's had the fumble problems against the Texans and the Chargers. That'll be something to watch out for if May's having his arm back while the pocket is collapsing or he's trying to step up. The Patriots are number 2 in fourth down conversion percentage on offense. There's going to be a couple of big ones that I think Mike Vrabel and Josh McDaniel will try to dial up something for. Maybe Drake May running the ball. Moving into that, Drake May's legs will convert multiple third and fourth downs. Drake May's legs are going to be a huge factor. Drake May called his own number against the Broncos, and that it sealed the game for them. Sam Darnold, they need to blitz early and put Sam Darnold under pressure to force him to turn the ball over. The Rams got a good bit of pressure, and Sam played really well. But and we said this before the NFC Championship game, when Sam is under pressure and getting hit a lot, that is when he has had turnover problems. So I think that is going to be another big key in this game. And for the Patriots, last thing, Christian Gonzalez, when he's on Jackson Smith-Njigba, has to win a one-on-one. I think the Seahawks have way too many weapons for you to double Jackson Smith-Njigba. With the tight end, you have Shaheed, who is incredibly fast. You have Cooper Kupp, who is a super good route technician. You have Kenneth Walker, who will get out in the backfield. He did it a lot in the NFC Championship game. Christian Gonzalez, if they don't have him following Jackson Smith-Njigba around, he has to win the matchup when he's on him in a one-on-one. They have to rely on that. For the Seahawks, they're 14th in red zone offense. The Pats are 23 in red zone defense. The Patriots are 22nd in red zone offense. The Seattle is 5th in red zone defense. So the Seahawks have a considerable advantage in the red zone. They won the red zone when they played the Rams. I think this is going to be another key. I think there's going to be a lot of third downs where you're going to question whether they go for it or not. You saw the Rams go for it twice on fourth down at the end of the fourth quarter. Will that come back and be a factor in this game if it's close late? The fourth down stand won the Seahawks the game. They've got to limit the deep threat with Kayshon Boutte and Stephon Diggs. Kenneth Walker out of the backfield will be a big factor. Moving Jackson Smith-Njigba around will be a big key. Other pieces need to be involved as well. the touchdown that they had to Jackson Smith and Jigba, he started in the backfield, and I think moving him around like that will be a huge advantage. Darnold playing clean, that's obviously going to be a given. Sam Darnold can't turn the ball over 4 times and expect to win this game. And the defense can't lose track of Drake May, especially if they're playing man coverage. If Drake May will run the ball. So they can't lose track of Drake May. And who do you got and how do you like it? Unless you have any other
Ultimately,
thoughts.
no, you pretty much covered it. Ultimately, I think Seattle. See, here's my thing. I love a good hate watch, and I have friends on both sides who I get to talk trash to regardless. So I think I'm going to take the under, but I'm going to root for the Patriots.
Um,
But I
Score
think
prediction.
the Seahawks will win.
Score prediction. Because I got the national championship right. I'm going for 2 for 2.
21-17 Seattle.
You said 20-17.
21-17.
I will go a little higher, and I will go 20. Let me think about this. I will go 27-23. I will go 27-23. I think because that would put the Patriots at 3 field goals. So yeah, that sounds about right. I think yeah, I'll stick with 27-23. So best bets. I won the month last month and 11-7, and it all came down to Brooks Koepka and Briggs plus 500 bet. And so I will take the month's 1-0. Briggs, what are your best bets?
All right. So I have 6, and then I have a little bonus one at the end for we can do it as a group, call it a free play, whatever you want. I've got Patriots plus 4.5. I just don't know if there's going to be enough points in the game for it to get all that far out of hand or they don't cover. Knock on wood. I've got Kenneth Walker under 71.5 rushing yards. I think that number is really high for what the Patriots are going to end up ultimately giving up and what we've seen them give up so far this playoffs. I've got the Spurs, and I couldn't find the line yet for this game. I've got Spurs minus 7.5 against Dallas. I think kind of based off of what the first 2 games have gone, I kind of just averaged out the numbers there. This I've got a hole in one at the Waste Management, and this is kind of for the rest of the way. It's at currently plus 110. It originally started out, it was like minus 150. So the line's moving up. I thought there was going to be one this year. I still do. And the fact that they're getting us plus money on it, I think everyone should go and hammer that. They're also giving us Scotty Scheffler top 10 at plus 125.
I
He
saw that.
had a he had a down day today and played absolutely awful, and yet was still only like 2 over. And this is one of the most like you talk about one of the like explosive players in football and hockey. Scotty Scheffler is the epitome of explosiveness in golf. He can just turn it around on a dime and go out there and absolutely tear it up. And TPC Scottsdale is a course you can tear it up at. So if you want to parlay the hole in one at the Waste Management and Scotty Scheffler to finish top 10, and you will be sitting pretty on Sunday night. My 6th and final regular pick is for the coin flip to be tails for the Super Bowl. I don't know if that actually counts. I'm going to say it is because why not? It's like minus 100 or something like that. Heads, I think, is plus 100. So go whichever side of the coin you want, but tails never fails. And then bonus pick, a non QB passing touchdown at plus 1,300.
So I saw the prop. It was like players to throw a pass. It was like the over under was like 2.5. I was like, that's interesting. I thought about that, but I'll do Dylan's. You were 4-2 last week, right?
I didn't count mine. Did you go undefeated?
You're 10-8. No, I went 5-1.
So I went
You
3 and
were
3
4-2. No, you did go 3-3.
because I was
That would
up
put you
one
at
and then I lost
10-8.
by
Yeah,
one.
you're
So
seven
I
and
was
five. You were 7-5. So 3-3 would put you at 10-8 because you were 10-8 last week, or 10-8 on the month. Dylan is also 10-8 overall. He tied Briggs for second. He was 4-2 last week. So we all made comebacks on Briggs when he was the leader. Dylan has Seahawks -4.5. The over at 45.5. Matt Collins +4 receptions at +225. That is interesting. Jackson Smith and Jigba anytime touchdown. Darnold to win the Super Bowl MVP, and Kenneth Walker over 82.5 yards. I assume that's rushing and receiving, which I don't hate that either. So we'll see who can win February. We're starting out 0-0, so we'll see. And what better way to start it off with the Super Bowl? For mine, I will take. I was 5-1 last week. I am 11-7 overall, which I don't know how I pulled that out, but I will have Duke and Florida money line parlay. That comes out to, I believe, -120, something like that, as of right now. I have the Toronto Rock -1.5 against Oshawa. That's also -120, give or take. And that's in the NLL. I have Jackson Smith and Jigba anytime touchdown. Kenneth Walker over 21.5 receiving yards. Both quarterbacks to have 200 plus passing yards. And Seattle first quarter money line. Seattle has been incredible in first quarters this season. I think that Seattle will at least be able to kick a field goal and get off to a fast start. Briggs, any other thoughts on anything going on? Do we want to talk about the Panarin trade or just save that for next week?
I will save it.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for tuning in. We really appreciate your time. Please like and subscribe. Let us know your thoughts on the Super Bowl. We will probably be doing an instant reaction on Sunday night. Don't know who's going to show up to that. It'll be someone. Someone will be here. And so stay tuned for that. If you haven't checked out our Olympics preview, it probably will popped up on the top right of your screen. We thank you so much for joining in. Have an amazing Super Bowl weekend, and God bless.